The first object was a metallic basketball-sized sphere, and it was above a podium, and looked like it was just levitating above the podium.
Levitating above the podium. Mm-hmm. So there was space between the sphere and the podium itself.
Correct. And I remember at one point, like, trying to angle myself, like, what? How is that?
Do you think it could have been some sort of magnetic levitation? Okay.
Maybe, yeah.
But it's just levitating there.
It was just levitating.
Did it look like a prosaic, like this wood table where if you were to, touch it, it would act like a normal object? Did it look holographic? What did it look like?
That's a good question. Then what stood out to me was the way the metal looked. It looked unnatural. And I talked with Gerb about this, and he kind of dug in on this. I mean, I'm like, dude, I don't know how to describe it. Yeah. All I can tell you is it didn't look natural. It didn't look like anything I could compare it to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So look, it almost looked like off-world.
It fit the bill. Yeah. And then also there was and this could have been anxiety or anything else, but the energy in the room, man, was just different.
What was the feeling you got looking at this thing?
Just an uneasy, uncomfortable, ominous. That's the best way I can describe it.
Did it feel powerful or conscious, or did it feel like this inanimate object? Or
it didn't feel inanimate. It didn't feel conscious. It just felt like this was significant, and it could have been the way that they brought us in. It could have been all the buildup. It could have been that.
Do you have any extra context at this point? Did the instructors at any point, are they in the room with you, by the way?
They are acting like this is a normal Tuesday. And that's what fucked me up even more. Like that was oddly very strange, man. Like this, I hadn't been exposed to anything like this before that or since. So,
and they didn't say, hey, so what you're about to experience is kind of trippy. They just took you into this room.
They just, and maybe that was part of the point. It could have absolutely just been something that triggered on a evaluation for me and this guy. And they brought us out there to see if we'd react to the technology. That could have been a part of it.
Do you ask them at any point?
So after a moment, have a moment to like kind of drink that in, and then they were talking about, and they were kind of talking to us and each other. It felt just weird, man. Almost like they were purposely making it awkward.
Yeah,
I would say, but maybe it's just because I was in a weird situation.
Do you know anything about these instructors as far as like, do they have physics background or military background?
Most of them have military background. A lot of them come out of the same type of special operations that we were in, at least some of them. But they are civilian contracted companies that are working for, for Crane.
Gerb has come up with some really interesting research around how this is possibly SAIC and how they've done some contracting work with Crane in the past. And SAIC is pretty deep in consciousness research. In fact, they were the CIA has a psychic spy program. This is fully, by the way, declassified and known and on record. Psychic spy program, it ran from 1972 to 1995. Probably some version of it is still going on today. I have trouble believing that, they actually sunsetted it fully. And
why wouldn't they? It was successful.
Yeah. And you have, people like Joseph McMoneagle, who's remote viewer #1, who won the Legion of Merit for over 200 instances in which he added to military intelligence. In fact, you have a quote from Jimmy Carter, who's president from 76 to 80, saying, the craziest thing that I've ever experienced in my presidency was a remote viewer. Her name, I believe, was Rosemary Smith. Yeah. Basically, there was this Tu-22 spy plane, Russian spy plane, that had downed, it had gone down in Africa. All of Africa is the target. And this woman draws a 3 square mile radius in Zaire where they find the plane. And he freaks out. And there's an audio of him saying this. And so for anybody out there, you should look into this. This is a real program. SAIC in Palo Alto was running a lot of the operations later for Stargate and the psychic spy program. So they're extremely interested in this. And our friend, UAP Gerb, has dug up a lot of research around SAIC's work with Crane. And there are other instances, by the way, of tests going on with people and their psionic connection. And there's a guy named Chris Bledsoe you're probably familiar with.
Yes.
North Carolina.
Yes.
A guy named
Crazy story.
Yeah. And a guy named Tim Taylor is a NASA mission controller. We were talking about him last night. Shows up in Bledsoe's life.
Yep.
shows him a piece of space material, and somehow Bledsoe knows that it's like not from here.
Yeah.
And then and there's this interesting kind of reaction, and then Tim Taylor says, "Why you?" or something. Like he knows that at that point Bledsoe does actually have this genuine psychic ability or something.
Well, dude, that's funny that you bring that up, because I 100% when I saw that sphere could say that I would, if I had no other context, even though I had the off-world technologies label, you know, if I had none of that, I would have been like, that's not from here.
Right. More context or corroboration that maybe your story isn't happening in a vacuum. There's a story of Uri Geller where, again, say what you will about the guy, I think there might have been some snake oil in some of the stuff that he was doing, but he was brought over by a guy named Andrei Puharich, who was part of consciousness research going on in the US, but also was doing weird MK Ultra stuff as well.
Right.
He brings over Uri Geller. Uri Geller has a crazy story with Wernher von Braun, who's the father of the German and American space programs, ran our Saturn program that took us to the moon, where von Braun shows him, again, a piece of space material in a safe. And Uri Geller is able to deduce that this is not from here or whatever. And so this seems to be kind of this recurring trope.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely felt that when I saw the object. I did not say that. And I think I think they were trying to see if we had a reaction to it. And I mean, because there was an awkward moment of silence, like I said, and then they started talking about it, and maybe they were discussing it to get further reaction out of us, but they started talking about that it was recovered from a craft that had crashed.
They said that.
They did say that.
Wow. So they said this orb was actually recovered from a craft,
yeah.
but it itself was not the craft.
Correct.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So what do we think? I mean, did you extrapolate anything from that as far as what role the orb played in the craft's overall working?
So I want to be careful how what I say I remember and don't remember, because this was a while ago, but I want to say I remember them talking about it being a control mechanism for the craft, some type of control mechanism for the craft. And I don't remember if they had said that to each other or to us. Like I said, there was kind of a two-way conversation happening. They were talking a little bit back and forth to each other, and then giving us bits of information also. So I don't remember exactly how that came out, but I do remember them saying that it was potentially part of a control mechanism and that it interacted with consciousness. I wanted to ask a question. I didn't, but I'm like, how would they know that?
Right. Wow. So, okay, you see this orb levitating on this podium. Then what happens?
So we spent a little time there, and then we went to the next object, and it was another metallic object, very, very strange looking, same type of vibe.